And welcome, Hoosier Nation, to our 80th episode of the Hoosier Sound, where we are the official podcast of Indiana HQ. Our mission and goal is simple. We want to bring in-depth analysis and coverage for Indiana University sports to as many fans as possible across a multitude of modern platforms. We are recording this edition of the Hoosier Sound on Wednesday evening, March 20th, 2019, where I am your host, Matthew Lukens, and here with me tonight is Nitin Krishnan.
Hello, everybody.
You can watch our live broadcast Tuesday evenings at 8:30 p.m. Words are hard on our YouTube page. Make sure you check out our YouTube or our website. If you miss us for the live broadcast, you can subscribe to our show for free on whatever platform you listen to podcasts, so you can listen on your own time. Check out our Twitter and Facebook at the Hoosier Sound and at Indiana HQ and subscribe. All of the information is on our website, indianahq.com. All right, Hoosier Nation, it's time for some sports talk. On the docket tonight, Indiana did not go to the tournament we wanted, sadly, but they did have their first game, the NIT tournament, last night, and they are still looking to win the whole damn thing. We will segue into the bracket, how the committee did, and then we'll do a live bracket pick to pick a champion from the Sweet 16 on down. We'll wrap it up with your submitted questions tonight. So first, the NIT. Before we get into everything, we want to apologize. I know we said we were going to have the world famous Andy Bottoms on tonight on the show. The NIT obviously changed our schedule since we couldn't do it last night because the game was last night, and it got moved around, so we couldn't make it work. So, sorry, guys. Also, as you can tell, Noah is not here tonight either. Again, Wednesdays are a terrible night for us, but we're going to make it work. Anyways, so last night, your IU Hoosiers beat St. Francis of Pennsylvania 89-72 behind a monster performance from the one and only Juwan Morgan. So, Nathan, you want to talk about Juwan's game last night a little bit?
Yeah, hello, everyone. Once again, thanks for joining us. There was a lot that took place really since our last episode back 8 days ago now. IU obviously lost to Ohio State in the Big Ten tournament, had a disappointing selection Sunday. The women's team had a great selection Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And now the NIT kicked off last night. And, look, the one thing that I wanted IU to do going into the NIT was take it seriously. The fact of the matter is that recently, in the last decade or so, IU has really struggled in tournament situations, whether it's the NCAA tournament, the NIT when they lost to Georgia Tech. The Big Ten tournament has been a sore spot for this program since its inception. And even those non-conference tournaments IU struggled in. So the one thing I was just looking for is to see IU take the NIT seriously. And while the first half was a bit of a, slop fest, I think you could say, kind of.
Yeah.
With, the red flash leading at halftime, St. Francis eventually got overmatched and overwhelmed by the Hoosiers. Juwan Morgan, like you said, was outstanding. I'm glad we saw him sort of bounce back from that game against Ohio State where he kind of struggled. He didn't play that much in the second half. But to see Juwan really deliver in a big game like this where he had 28 and 8, he was really efficient in the lane. I think he maybe fell in love a little bit with the three-point shot because the defenses were giving him that at the end of the regular season. He was really dominant inside. And even without Romeo Langford, IU was able to get a win. And now this is where the NIT gets fun. I understand it's not the NCAA tournament, but I think you've got a path here where you got to beat Arkansas and probably Clemson to get to Madison Square Garden. It's not the NCAA tournament, make no mistake about it, but there is definitely something IU can gain from the NIT. Don't you agree, Matt?
Absolutely. I mean, it's extra games, it's extra practice time. I mean, when the season ended last year after the Rutgers game, that team didn't practice again. Like, you're not allowed to practice unless you really have a game. You have kind of workouts, and they maybe have open gyms, but they don't have like actual game preparation practice. And so it's really, really, really beneficial, especially the younger players, to get game time. So it was nice to see Demezy get about 5 minutes of playing time last night. It was nice to see Jake Forrester and Clifton Moore get about a minute and a half of game time, because every second of game time these younger players get is more comfortable to get on the floor, and the more comfortable they get on the floor, the better they'll play. So it was nice to see those guys get a run out. Of course, it was a little bit more comfortable in the second half. The first half was extremely uncomfortable. I thought we were going to pull another IPFW or Indiana State. I saw it coming, but kudos to Archie for saying all the right things at halftime and getting the guys out there in the second half ready to play. They looked a lot more engaged in the second half. They were passing the ball better in the second half. Props to Devontae Green, who didn't have the world's best game, but he had a decent enough game, and some of the decisions he made in the open court weren't the best, but I thought there were certain plays that he made, and he looks like a much better player over the last 5 games than he has been all season. So yeah, I mean, Nathan, you got anything to add about Devontae or Rob? Because I thought we had great guard play last night from our 2 point guards.
Yeah, well, you talk about Devontae Green. I mean, I know it feels like an eternity ago, but when really, when the Hoosiers lost to Ohio State on Thursday, you could probably say confidently that the only bright spot in that game was Devontae Green. I mean, he was on fire against the Buckeyes, really, from start to finish. He was playing at a different speed than everyone else, a different level of urgency. You see those kind of things when it comes to upperclassmen, and that's why it's going to be really exciting next year to have a few more of those. Green, he scored 26 against the Buckeyes. He was rock solid against St. Francis as well. And I'm really looking forward to seeing him next year. His senior year, along with Deron Davis, Devontae Green's got potential to be a consistent double-digit per game guy with 20, 25 point upside in a specific game. So really excited. As far as Finney goes, he's the defensive version. If that guy can stays focused, stays into it. Not that he's had a problem with that, but if he's engaged for 40 minutes or how many ever minutes he plays, Rob Finney is going to be a rock solid point guard in the league. Now, I know this might annoy some people, but I kind of think Finney reminds me a little bit, just a little bit, not carbon copy or anything, just a little bit of Aaron Kraft. You remember the pain in the butt Ohio State point guard?
That's an interesting comparison, but
again,
please elaborate.
Well, there's not too much to dive into here, but a defensive-oriented point guard who's got the confidence to take big shots when they get there. Again, not exact similarities by any means, but look, if you're telling me Rob Finney becomes that type of player by the time his senior season comes around, I think a lot of coaches in the Big Ten would be afraid of playing the Hoosiers.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, but I mean, I guess I can see where you're coming from, but player comparisons are hard to do, so I don't know. Let's hope Rob Finney is.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Again, not exact.
Yeah, it's not an exact science. Yeah.
No.
All right, but anyways, other stuff that stood out from the box score, other than Juwan having a plus-minus of 25, which is pretty nice, was Zach McRoberts having the 4th highest plus-minus in the 12 minutes that he played at plus-minus 13. He did not have a point, which is no surprise if you followed Zach McRoberts throughout his career at IU. But he had plenty of hustle and energetic defensive plays that really helped out the Hoosiers. He had 1 rebound. So he just did Zach McRoberts things. So it was nice to see him to get a good run into the team, and he was the first guy off the bench, I believe. Duran didn't look himself, and we still won this game by 18 without Romeo and basically without Duran. So, I mean, we did get scared a little bit in the first half, but I thought it was pretty comfortable. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. And now it's pretty much on to Arkansas, right?
Correct. So moving on to the Arkansas Razorbacks. So who would have thought that Daniel Gafford sits out their first game? They travel to Providence, Rhode Island, and they win without their best player. Arguably their best player. So we obviously played them earlier this year. Daniel Gafford went off in that game, gave us a headache. We probably should have won that game if Duran had some more, mustard in his legs. He might have been able to get that tip in. Sadly, he still was getting his legs back from his injury and short-armed the tip in. And so we lost. I guess if you're listening to this podcast, you know this, but I have to say it anyways. So what are you looking at, Nathan, from the Arkansas Razorbacks, and what are you looking forward to about getting revenge on Saturday?
Yeah, really interesting that you get a revenge game against a non-conference team at some point in the same season. That Arkansas game, I mean, it feels like it was 10 years ago, in all honesty. I don't think either team is close to what they were back when they faced each other the first time. Like you said, no Gafford for Arkansas on this one, no Langford for IU. Probably. We'll see how things go. The game is on Saturday, so IU does get a couple days off between now and then. There was some potential that it was going to be on Thursday, which is tomorrow compared to when we're recording this. But look, 2 NBA guys may not dress up. Definitely one for Arkansas. I mean, it's crazy when you look at how in that matchup against Arkansas, a close game, Demezy Anderson played 26 minutes. Evan Fitzner played 18. Rob Finney played 21. I mean, it just the minutes distribution back then is so different than it is now. IU's going to have the upper hand in this game. They're going to be the favorite. It's going to be a bit of a faster pace than what IU's accustomed to. Arkansas really likes to get up and down the floor, and they'll do so, especially without Gafford in the lane. But the Hoosiers should really have the advantage rebounding. If Langford plays, that's going to absolutely benefit IU, and it should be a fairly, IU shouldn't have too much trouble against Arkansas. But look, they're in the SEC. They're a good squad. They're gonna show up. So that's how I see it. I guess I would predict something like IU by 7 or 8 points. How do you feel?
It depends on how many people show up. Crowd yesterday was a little bit sparse. I think there's only 5,000 people in Assembly Hall that seats 17,000 and 2, right? And so it was a bit sparse yesterday, but I'm hoping for a better turnout. Turnout is decent, somewhere around like maybe doubling that turnout. I could definitely see us winning by 8 or 9 points. As I think we had a really hard time against this team. We would have beat this team if it was later in the season, even though we struggled later in the season. But it was our first true road game, and so I think the freshmen were a little bit jarred by that in that game. I would look for Rob Finney, and if Romeo plays, Romeo to have a much better game this time around against the Razorbacks.
No, I was just going to say our guy Rob had a really nice preview of Arkansas over at Indiana HQ, and I would definitely recommend that all of you kind of read through it, whether you're going to the game or whether you're going to watch it from home or just follow it on your phone. I mean, it's got a breakdown of the guys that Arkansas's got, who left their team after last season, who projects as a starter. That's important now because there won't be any Daniel Gafford for Arkansas, and then it kind of dives into the what to watch for aspect of this matchup. But you talked about the crowd. It was, it's not the numbers that we are accustomed to seeing with IU basketball, but, I still thought the crowd did make quite a bit of noise. They did seem really supportive. They were pretty loud. I think probably because they were all very close to the court. It was a really good move by the athletics department to give students free tickets, and allowing really general admission seating for the lower levels. So, the crowd, look, if you want to get up close and personal to the IU men's basketball team at Assembly Hall, this is the time to go. Saturday, New Tip.
And if you can't go, I know Martha the Mop Lady on Twitter is running a campaign to get people who can't normally go to games to get to the games, because tickets are pretty cheap, and it's sit anywhere you want. So if you want to help out, go check out Martha the Mop Lady on Twitter, and you can contact her and talk to her about maybe being able to send some people to the game. So there's that. All right. So moving on, Nathan, who won the week for IU sports this past week?
Wow, that's a good question. We obviously can't go with anything men's basketball related based on how that went.
No.
But the team that I think I'm going to say won the week is I'm going to go with the IU women's basketball team. It was a nail-biting kind of Big Ten tournament that they played. They had a nice win on Thursday. They tripped up Friday against a really good Iowa team that's a 2 seed in the NCAA tournament. But the Hoosiers had to sweat it out a little bit on Monday, but they got in to the NCAA women's tournament. The Hoosiers will take on Texas, the Longhorns, in a 10-7 matchup. IU will be a 7 seed in that one. And hey, Matt, where are they going to play that game?
They're playing in Eugene, Oregon, where I will be there in the band. So if you're watching the game, look out for me. I'll be there with my saxophone.
I love it. No, it's going to be, I'm definitely going to be listening out for that. But the game tips at 7 Eastern on Friday night. So you've got a little men's, women's basketball back-to-back action this weekend. The women will take the court on Friday, the men on Saturday. And then if the women beat Texas, they will likely play Oregon in Eugene on Sunday. So really interesting. It's a great accomplishment for the women's program. They won the women's NIT last year.
Yep.
They lost Tyra Buss and added Amanda Cahill to graduation. And even though those two great IU players left the team after last season, the Hoosiers and Coach Terry Morin were able to get into the big dance. So fantastic. I'm going to be watching. It's on ESPN2 Friday night.
Yep. Look out for Allie Patberg, Indiana native, great point guard. Brenna Wise as well, Pittsburgh native. I'm sure Noah's happy about her repping some cream and crimson from Beantown. Anyways, Beantown's Boston. Why did I say that?
Yeah, that's Boston. The Steel,
all right.
City.
All right. I'm sorry. I Steeltown? All right, whatever.
Steel City. I think Steel City.
Is this Steel City?
I think so.
I feel like Noah might edit this out of the podcast. We'll figure this out. Anyways,
we'll get our researchers on it.
That's right. I'm sure our Slack channel is now exploding with what's the right answer. Anyways, on to the NCAA tournament. Yes, there is another tournament other than the NIT. I will be watching it. I'm sure everybody who's watching or listening to this podcast will be also watching it. So what is your opinion, Nathan, on the job the committee did on the bracket overall? And then I'll chime in with my opinion once you're done. So
yeah, and feel free to interrupt me. But in all seriousness, look, it is what it is. It's an inexact science. It's a time-consuming process. The committee is just trying to do the best job that they can. In all seriousness, I'm not too annoyed by anything, and maybe you disagree, but I felt like maybe they undervalued the Big Ten this year. I think you saw that right off the bat when Michigan State was placed in Duke's region. And then, some of the other teams in the conference, like Iowa got a 10 seed, Ohio State got an 11. Purdue was stuck with Villanova, sort of in the same area of that bracket. The Big Ten didn't really get a friendly draw in this bracketing deal on Sunday. But other than that, look, let's face it, guys. This really should be the last year that IU is on the bubble. This is what happens when you're on the bubble. There's so many different factors in play. There are so many different criteria and conditions that look. if you're lucky, you get in. If you're not, you get out. And, it just depends on what the committee's feeling on that day, whether they're emphasizing wins or net ranking or who you beat or who you lost to or how many times you lost or when you lost or who was on your team when you. It's tough. I mean, there are so many different things they can choose from. They went with the teams that they were comfortable with. Obviously, there's some fresh flavor in this bracket with Belmont and VCU and UCF and teams like that. So, look, if IU didn't want to be in that place, like Archie Miller said, they should have won more games. And going forward, that's going to be the directive for the Hoosiers.
Man, you spouted off that criteria so fast. I'm proud of you. Anyways, yeah, I don't really have much to add on that. I have no argument with IU not getting in the tournament. I thought it was 50-50. I'm glad Texas didn't make it in the tournament. I'm glad a lot of the teams that had a lot of losses didn't make it in the tournament. I think it's good that the committee rewarded teams for actually winning games and not just playing hard games. Though that might hurt our non-conference scheduling in the future. Like, I don't think we'll see us play a team like Arkansas on the road for the foreseeable future. You might play on the road still in non-conference, but I don't think it'll be against a Power 5 team. I don't blame that IU didn't get in. We win one of the Iowa games. We win the aforementioned Arkansas game. We win, one of the 11 games that we lost like in a row. Like, we just had to win like one or two more games or win that Ohio State game, and we just couldn't do it, and it just wasn't meant to be. So I thought that the committee did an okay job. I didn't do an excellent job. I think I thought there was a lot of it was a lot of just smoke and mirrors almost. Nobody really knew what the criteria was going to be, and especially with this new net ranking and the influx of the Ken Palms and the Sargent ratings of the world, we didn't really know what was going on. So I feel like more communication from the committee next time, so that us fans can kind of understand what is going on. I feel like even a lot of the bracketologists were kind of like, well, I don't really know what they're going to do because I don't know what criteria they're using. But I think we kind of had a glimpse into seeing what they do. All right. So any potential upsets for the first weekend, Niffin? Do you have any potential upsets?
Well, they're going to happen. That's the one thing.
It is the tournament.
Yeah,
is there going to be a UMBC this year? I want to know.
No, I don't think so. I think there are going to be a number of upsets. If anyone tells you that they think they know, they don't. Let's make that very clear. Yeah, besides Matt, everyone tweet Matt. He knows everything.
I do know everything.
Matt Stradamus. Look, the thing is, looking up and down these regions, there are just so many good matchups. The teams that I'm really looking at as far as potential upsets go, and I know we are going to go through sort of a collective bracket where we talk through things, but personally, the stuff that I could see take place, I could really see Yale knock off LSU. I could see New Mexico State knocking off Auburn. I love UC Irvine's shot of beating Kansas State. The Wildcats don't have one of their best players available for this tournament, Dean Wade. Irvine was going to have a good shot whether or not Wade played, and he's out. So, I mean, even now more so, they're going to be feeling good. They're also playing really closer to UC Irvine. That game's in California. Kansas State's got to travel all the way out to the West Coast. And I'm also looking forward to seeing John Morant, the stud point guard at Murray State. I think they'll knock off the Marquette Golden Eagles. But what were you looking at?
I was looking at our brethren up to the north, our hated rival Purdue. I actually like Old Dominion against Purdue. Yes, I do.
Wow.
Because Old Dominion are a very slow team. Like they play very slow. They're very defensive. And they have two senior guards that are just I mean, no, one's a guard, one's a forward, sorry, but they have two seniors that really can score the ball, and I think they'll give Purdue fits. Especially since I heard Carson Edwards wasn't totally 100%. I also like Belmont to make a significant run in the tournament. In my bracket, I think I have them going to the Sweet 16. I really like Belmont's coach. I also think if anybody's primed for an upset, it's Maryland. And then, the aforementioned LSU, who I also have losing to Yale. And I think Belmont is better than Yale, so they'll end up in the Sweet 16. Liberty over Mississippi State. I think Liberty has a pretty decent squad, and I just don't trust this Mississippi State team. I think it's more about Mississippi State, like me not trusting them. Also, Liberty is a very balanced attack. All of their players score. I also like the Murray State one. I'm just moving down the bracket right now, but I think that's about it for me. I don't know if Wofford's more of an upset, but I think Wofford could, give a lot of teams trouble, especially the likes of Kentucky. And then, my last shaky upset pick, I'm like 75-25 that Kansas is going to win, but 25% of me thinks Northeastern could really bring it to a Kansas team that is actually pretty young. Dedrick Lawson's great, but he's a junior. But without Azubuike, Devin Dotson, Quentin Grimes, and Agbaji are all freshmen, and it's their first tournament game against a team that shoots 39% from three and 48% from the field. So I think Northeastern could be a shock upset against Kansas. Any thoughts?
Yeah, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, no, like I was, I really liked your picks too. The thing that really, honestly, outside of the 1 and 2 seeds, I could really see anything happen Thursday and Friday.
I could even see some of the 2 seeds going down. I could see Michigan losing to Montana. I could see Colgate giving Tennessee a hard time. I don't think Bradley's going to beat Michigan State, but I could see Colgate giving Tennessee a decently hard time.
Yeah, to me, the line sort of is drawn after the 2 seeds. Again, if I think those teams are really solid, including Michigan, including Michigan State, Tennessee. I think those teams, I think they'll definitely take care of business Thursday and Friday. I don't think we'll see UMBC over Virginia in 2019.
No,
but really 3 seeds all the way down to the 8-9 matchup on Thursday and Friday. I think you're gonna get a good number of upsets, and I really think just for neutral basketball fans like all IU fans are now, I think you're going to get just a lot of close games, a lot of 1-2 possession games. There aren't too many ridiculous point spreads if you just scan through those in the coming 2 days. I think a lot of these are going to come down to how teams execute in the final 3-4 minutes, and that's exactly what we want.
Yep. All right, so we here at the Hoosier Sound made a bracket. So if you want to pull up your brackets right now, you can go along with us. We're going to start from the Sweet 16, and we'll go matchup by matchup, so you can kind of tell how we got here is up to interpretation. You can pretend like you picked upsets. You can just pick the seeds that you want to go through. That's up to you, but we're going to start with the Sweet 16 in the East region with the number 1 overall seed Duke playing Virginia Tech. So I'll go first. I think this is going to be a tough game for Duke. Duke actually lost to Virginia Tech earlier this year by 5 at Virginia Tech. I believe that was out without Zion Williamson. So, that should be a caveat. I think Duke have only lost twice with Zion. They lost 3 times without him. But yeah, I do think Duke will run away with this game. Virginia Tech has their best player, Robinson, their guard, is injured, and it's just coming back from injury. So I don't think they'll be 100%. So I'm picking the Blue Devils. How about you, Nathan?
Yeah, I agree. I do think I saw that Robinson will try to give it a go in the tournament this year. after missing a few games. But yeah, no, I agree. Duke is a three-headed monster at a minimum, maybe even four. I think they'll knock off Virginia Tech, but these conference matchups are always a bit weird in the NCAA tournament.
Yes, they're always a bit stringy. Anyways, moving on. Second matchup in the East region. We got another conference matchup. We got Maryland, Michigan State in the Sweet 16. Who do you got, Nathan?
Oh man, this is an interesting one, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
Michigan State knocked off Maryland when they played each other back in January. That game was in East Lansing. I have a tough time seeing Michigan State lose this one. Bruno Fernando and Jalen Smith are really good inside, and I know Nick Ward is a little banged up. But, come on. It's, look, and the one thing, though, I will say is that if it does come down to MSU versus Maryland, the Terps will have the home court advantage. That game will be in D.C.
Correct.
Our friend, I don't know, our friend Noah might even be there. I'm not sure. But
he might be.
Look, I still think MSU is the better team, and I think they'll end up winning.
I also agree with you. I think getting Nick Ward back is huge for this team. Cassius Winston's great, and I think you give Izzo a week to prepare, and that should give Michigan State the advantage over Mark Turgeon and his Terps. So that's Duke and Michigan State to the Elite Eight. All right, moving down to the West region, we have Gonzaga, the 1 seed, and the 4 seed Florida State Seminoles. I am going to go with Gonzaga in this matchup. I think the Zags will overpower FSU, though I do think if FSU wins this game, they will make the Final Four. But they're not going to, and Gonzaga is going to win it just because they have so much talent. I honestly think Gonzaga is the best team in the tournament outside of Duke. So,
wow. First of all, I will say as an aside, I like how we're doing sort of the end of the bracket. Everyone you see on TV right now or whatever, they're picking the first weekend. Yeah. We're going past that. We've already taken care of that. So,
well, we got it perfect because you have me.
Yeah,
and I already told you it was going to happen. So
yeah, that's right.
We've moved on.
We're on our way to the $1 billion Warren Buffett prize, which I'm not even sure exists this year. But look, Gonzaga, Florida State, interesting game for sure. Florida State's really long and athletic. That's one thing that really stood out to me when they really kind of blew out Virginia. I know the score wasn't exactly a blowout, but when Florida State and Virginia played on Friday in the ACC tournament, the Seminoles were in control for 40 minutes, which was really impressive. This game will be out on the West Coast, so you've got to think Gonzaga will have the home court advantage. Yep. I think for that reason, I'm going to go with the Zags. I love what they've got, and I think Florida State's they're kind of due to lose one. They're going to have some heavy legs after making the final in the ACC tournament, so I'm going to go with Gonzaga.
All right, so Gonzaga it is. All right, and they will be playing the winner of the 3 seed Texas Tech or the 2 seed Michigan. So, Nathan, are you going to go with Michigan from the Big 10 or Texas Tech from the Big 12?
Man, first of all, I love this coaching matchup. You got John Beilein
matchup.
John Beilein from Michigan, who for me is the most underrated coach in the country, which is kind of crazy, but because he's been around for a while, except people just haven't given him the credit. And then there's Chris Beard, who's the up and coming hotshot head coach for Texas Tech. This is going to be a great matchup. Man, I think Michigan will come out on top. I think Beilein usually has his team prepared for March. Texas Tech, I think Texas Tech is going to have a little bit of a tough time coming out of the first weekend, in all honesty. So for that reason, I'm going to take the Wolverines. Do you agree or disagree?
See, I disagree on this one, actually. I really like Jarrett Culver and the Texas Tech. I almost said Longhorns because that would have been wrong. But I really like Texas Tech. I like Chris Beard as a coach. I thought they had a great past season. So I'm gonna disagree, and I also think that Michigan's best basketball is behind them. So I'm gonna go with the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So I guess Noah is going to have to break the tie when he jumps in here in a second. So we'll move on from that matchup. We'll go back to it. So let's go up to the South. Let's go Virginia, Kansas State. I'm gonna go first on this one. I think the Hoos are gonna get this one. I do see some tournament success for Virginia this year. I think they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. I really like Virginia to win this one. How about you?
You know, it's funny. I think even having Kansas State at this stage will be something a lot of people disagree with, and I can see that.
Correct.
They have a brutal sort of weekend coming up. If they even get to the Sweet 16, it'll be a remarkable achievement. I'm going to take Virginia. They're rock solid across the board. I think they're going to bounce back from their shocking loss last year. I think they're going to be a real force to be reckoned with this season.
How about you, Noah? Noah's here, everybody. So Virginia or Kansas State? Nice of you to join us, by the way. You got Virginia.
Hey, guys. Yeah. Just a little late, but still here. Get to get in on the very end of it. But Virginia, they've got a very for the style of play everyone likes to bash Virginia about, they've got a very good region for them to be able to go far this year, let alone all of the jokes. Not sure what you guys have said before, but Virginia.
All right, so we're going to head back to the West bracket. So I'll update you, Noah. So in the East, we have Duke and Michigan State in the Elite Eight, and we have Gonzaga in the Elite Eight in the West. Now, Nathan and I are split 1-1 on Texas Tech and Michigan. So out of that matchup, who do you think is going to win?
Texas Tech.
Texas Tech?
I just have a gut feeling it's their year.
That's what I said. So Texas Tech moves on. So it's Gonzaga, Texas Tech in the West, Duke, Michigan State in the East. And to play Virginia in the South, we have the winner of Villanova and Tennessee. So, Noah, who do you think is going to win the Villanova and Tennessee game and move on to play Virginia in the Elite Eight?
Tennessee.
Tennessee? Why?
Again, not too in depth of an answer. I just think Tennessee is going to be able to go far. They've played a tough conference. They've been able to. They've got a lot of great players. They've got a lot of veteran leadership. Of course, they haven't been to the tournament very much, but you never know. I think Tennessee is going to get over there. Villanova is not necessarily the best team that they've been of recent. They're definitely capable of losing. So Tennessee.
Okay, Nathan.
Yeah, and I mean, by the way, this also means we had Purdue losing in the first weekend. For those of you that
Correct.
kind of like, wait a second, how what happened to Purdue? So that's what happened. We basically think they're going to fall in the first weekend as
classic Purdue fashion. Yes.
Wow, man, taking shots.
QQ.
Oh man. As far as this game goes, though, Tennessee's really good. They have the third most efficient offense in the nation, according to Ken Pom. Villanova's a live by the three, die by the three kind of team. I think they're going to die by the three in this one. I've got Tennessee.
Really? See, I have Villanova in this game because I really trust Jay Wright. And I think that Phil Booth is a wonderful senior guard. And that's no offense to Tennessee, who has two fantastic players in their own right. And Admiral Schofield and Grant Williams, but Phil Booth, Eric Pascal, Colin Gillespie, I think it's gonna be a little bit too much for a Tennessee team that it's not used to postseason basketball. But that doesn't matter because you guys both voted for Tennessee, so they win. Moving on, so it's Virginia and Tennessee in the South. We'll move down to the Midwest. North Carolina and Auburn. So, Nathan, is it the Tar Heels or is it the Tigers?
I'm going to take UNC. The Tar Heels are one of the few teams in the country that are both top 10 in both offense and defense in the Ken Pom ratings. They're a really good team. Obviously, guys like Luke May and Cam Johnson are excellent. Auburn's good, and they're hot right now. They just won the SEC tournament. But I'm always a little bit wary of teams that make it all the way to their conference title game. Lots of games and consecutive days. I think UNC will come away with the win here.
How about you, Noah?
I did not have Auburn as far as both of you guys had it. Auburn's in the Sweet 16 because both of you guys had them there. I didn't think Auburn was even going to get there anyway. So UNC by default, basically.
Damn. See, I'm going to be the alternate voice again. I think I really like Auburn. I really like Bryce Brown and Jared Harper. I think those two senior guards going up against some slightly inexperienced guards from North Carolina, and with a week to prepare, I do think Bruce Pearl will have them ready to play and play North Carolina, even though Roy Williams is one heck of a coach, just won national championship with UNC. But I like Auburn in that matchup. I think their guards are much more craftier than UNC's, but or not craftier. They're much more experienced because Kobe White's amazing. But anyways, UNC moves on by default because I get voted out again. So UNC wins. All right, we move on to the Houston-Kentucky matchup. Of course, Kelvin Sampson has got his Houston Cougars into the Sweet 16 here in this bracket against Calipari and the Kentucky Wildcats. And I am going to go with Kelvin Sampson takes revenge on UK. He remembers what it's like to beat UK when he's at IU. And Armani Brooks and Corey Davis Jr. get it done against a inexperienced Kentucky backcourt. I like experience in this tournament, if you can't tell, so I have Houston winning this game. Noah, how about you?
I want to be the tiebreaker for this, potentially. Nathan, what about you first?
All right, Nathan.
All right, Noah, it's on you. I have Kentucky here. I love Calipari in this situation. They've got a ton of talent across the board, and they're playing pretty well right now, so I'm going to take UK.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go UK too.
Man, guys.
I just don't think Houston's necessarily tournament experience compared to Kentucky. And as I hate to put Kentucky that far beyond it, and trust me, it pains me to keep putting them there. But yeah, I don't see Kentucky losing to Houston.
All right, Kentucky it is. So it's 1 seed, 2 seed, 1 seed, 3 seed, 1 seed, 2 seed, 1 seed, 2 seed. All right. So the favorites are running away with this one. All right, moving up to the East bracket, we've got Duke and Michigan State. So I'll go first in this one. I think I went first last time, but oh well, I'm going again. I got Duke beating Michigan State. Yes, I love the Spartans, but I just don't think, and I'm going to ruin my pick for the championship game, but I just don't think anybody's going to beat Duke this year. I think they're way too talented, way too stacked. Nathan, Duke or Michigan State?
I mean, look, I know people want suspense, but I've got Duke also. They're really good guys. They're really athletic. Michigan State's kind of banged up. Honestly, it's an accomplishment if they even, they've had a really good season. The Spartans.
If Duke loses in this tournament, it is this game. This is the game they lose. I think this is the toughest game I had deciding for Duke. If they get a rematch with Gonzaga, I think they'll win. But yeah,
I disagree with you, Matt. I think they could possibly later on, but I've got Duke in this one. Noah?
Yeah, I've got Duke in this one. This is where I think the Michigan State's done an incredible job of getting around the injuries this year, but I think this is just a matchup that's too tough for them to overcome. And if you saw the result at the beginning of the season, Michigan State even played those better teams. So sadly, Duke all the way.
Man, guys. All right, so moving on down. So that's Duke in the Final Four. We're moving to the West region. We've got Gonzaga, Texas Tech. Noah, who's winning this one?
Gonzaga is prone to losing. I've never necessarily liked Gonzaga going all the way in the kind of conference they play. That's not to bash any of their type of player, how good they are. I just think it's about their time to lose. So I'm going to go with the upset in Texas Tech, so we don't have 1-1-1-1-1-1-1.
I'll let you be the tiebreaker, Matt. I'll take Gonzaga. I think for those reasons, kind of, maybe they've lost in previous years, but a couple years ago they made it to the national title game. I think they'll win this one.
All right, I'm going to be selfish this time. I'm going to go with Texas Tech, even though I said I like the Zags in this tournament. And all my other brackets, I have Gonzaga or Florida State moving on. I don't have a bracket with Texas Tech because this is on my account. I have a bracket with Texas Tech. When they go to the Final Four, it makes me look like a genius. So we're going with Texas Tech for selfish reasons only. So that's Duke and Texas Tech in the Final Four. We're moving over to the South region. Yes, I know I give such in-depth analysis. We have Virginia and Tennessee. Nathan, who do you like with Virginia and Tennessee?
Oh man, this is going to be a fun game if these two teams do match up. And fun in terms of, I think it's going to be kind of really defensive. But both teams are really efficient at what they do on both ends of the floor. I'm going to ride with Virginia on this one. I think the 1 seed, I think they're going to just have a little bit of a less stressful journey to this particular game. So I think Virginia will come out on top.
All right, I'm going to go. I'll let Noah be the tiebreaker. But I like the Tennessee Volunteers. Again, I had Villanova winning, but, hint, I have Villanova going to the Final Four and beating Virginia. I know it's kind of annoying to have Villanova in the Final Four all the time, but I do think, Jay Wright has his team to play in every single tournament game. So I like Villanova, but I also like Tennessee as well. I think that Villanova-Tennessee game would be very close. The winner of that would beat Virginia. So I got Tennessee. All right, Noah, you're the tiebreaker. Who's going through?
I really want to see those teams that usually you don't get into the Final Four. So like we had Texas Tech, that's a team you don't usually see in the Final Four. It's nice to see some teams that are not just those blue bloods, and Tennessee would be one of those teams not to get into the Final Four that you see every year. But I'm going to have to go with the Cavaliers. Like I said earlier, the Cavaliers, it's probably their best bracket that they've been able to have so far this year. I mean, their opponent's points per game is 55.1. They let their opponents score 55 points a game, and they played in the ACC where 3 ACC teams got a number 1 seed. Tennessee scores a lot, basically 82 points, but Virginia, I think, is the more experienced against those top caliber teams. The SEC has obviously some big matchups, but UVA has just done it a bunch. I think it's their year to finally get around the hump that they've been just so prone to in the bracket, getting out early basically every single year. Maybe this is the year that the pack line defense slows just someone down. So going to go the Cavs.
All right. So moving on down, last Elite 8 matchup in the Midwest. We've got North Carolina against Kentucky. Noah, you get to go first this time. So is the Tar Heels or the Cats?
I want to go the Tar Heels. I don't want to see Kentucky in there. I wouldn't do that just for that reason. But Kentucky, UNC is a really good team right now. They've been playing really well. They almost beat Duke again with Zion. So all of the notion that those 2 wins that they had against Duke without Zion, yeah, it happened. But they were a couple inches away from that last second shot going in to beat Duke in the conference tournament. So I'm going to go UNC.
All right, I'm going to be the tiebreaker. Or I'm not going to be the tiebreaker. I'm going to tie it up. I'm going to go with Kentucky. I have Houston in the Final Four in my bracket. Again, that Kentucky-Houston game is close for me. So I like Kentucky to beat UNC. I just like this matchup for Kentucky. I think Ashton Hagans is a really good matchup against Kobe White. I think Luke May and I'm forgetting his name for Kentucky right now. PJ Washington and what's the grad transfer from Stanford's name that I'm totally whiffing on right now?
Reed Travis.
I like him against Luke May. I like Kentucky in this matchup and in this game against UNC, even though I don't have them playing in this game. In my bracket, I do like Kentucky better than North Carolina, so I got Kentucky to the Final Four. Nathan, where are we going with it?
Oh man, this would be a great Final Four. Elite 8 matchup.
Yes.
Oh man, UNC got him a few years ago. I think Kentucky will pay him back. I got the Wildcats in this one.
All right. So
See, I was thinking earlier in the season how Kentucky beat UNC earlier this season. Like UNC wants the revenge to try and get over that when it actually matters. But
and we got
I'll
an
take it.
interesting Final Four in Minneapolis for the Final Four. The first matchup, the Duke Blue Devils versus the Texas Tech Red Raiders. So who wants to go first on this one?
Duke.
Duke. All right. Nathan?
Duke.
All right. I got Duke as well. They played each other earlier this year, and Duke won in Madison Square Garden. So, second matchup on April 6th, the Final Four, Virginia, Kentucky. I got Kentucky. Anybody else?
I got Virginia.
Okay. No.
No,
Gosh,
ball is in your court.
I didn't want to be the last person because I honestly have no idea who's going to win this game. This would be such a close game. You've got two teams that they usually don't play each other either. They're teams in other like opposite conferences that they've got a bunch of good talent around them as like in other teams around them as well. They score almost the same amount of points per game. Kentucky's got not bad of a defense this year. If you want to even go as far as to look at their BPI rank, it's about the same. They have UVA has a little bit less losses, but man, that is a very tough game. I think this is going to be a coin flip. If I say one team, I could easily say the other team as well. I don't like being the tiebreaker on this one. All right, I'm going to go UVA. I'm Virginia. Wow. Virginia, I'm going to go that way just because I'm from Virginia. It'd be nice to see the Wahoos get all the way up there. I've got so many friends at UVA. There's my reason, and I don't feel bad for it.
Okay, that's fine. That's how most people pick their brackets anyways.
Exactly.
So, Duke, Virginia, an all-ACC affair in the championship game, April 8th. The winner is, Nathan?
Virginia.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I had kind of teased it earlier. I think this is where Duke actually trips up. The teams faced each other twice earlier this year. They were well-played games. Duke won both of them, but it wasn't like, regardless of what the final scores ended up being, there were competitive games. I'm all aboard the Virginia bouncing back narrative this year. Their team with Kyle Guy and DeAndre Hunter and Ty Jerome and Mamadi Diakite. I mean, they've got a bunch of really quality basketball players. I think part of it is I just like their bracket. And Noah, you've mentioned that a few times here. I don't think they're going to have too many stressful games up until like the Elite Eight or so. I think this is where they knock off Duke and people, and now, even though it hasn't had to be like this, the Virginia basketball program and Tony Bennett will really be put on the map, even for the most casual of college basketball fans. I got Virginia.
All Matt, right. You're going to be the tiebreaker. You're going to be the tiebreaker this time. I'm going to say Duke, just to make it very suspenseful at the end. Duke beat Virginia twice this year. I don't know if they're going to be able to. I don't know if Virginia's going to be able to finally get over that hump. So I'm going to leave Matt for the all big analysis for the final pick.
So UNC won the title not too long ago. If you look at the last 100 meetings between Duke and UNC, it's like 50-50. Duke has 5 national championships. UNC has 6. That means the law of averages means Duke needs to win this one to go back to 6-6. So I have the Duke Blue Devils because everything should be even in the universe. Secret, our unexpected Thanos just popping up there. But yes, as everything needs to be equal, so as needs to be the UNC Duke rivalry. So for that, we have picked Duke to win the national championship against Virginia, even though I really want Virginia to win the national championship. That's it. The Hoosier Sound has the Duke Blue Devils winning the national championship game. All right. So we're going to move into questions now. So
before we go into that, I would say last year our bracket was not the best. It was not the worst. We did this with Andy Bottoms, and like I think you guys have already said, we weren't able to get him on this week just with the NIT tournament. And We'll have to see how it does this year, but I mean, as every single bracket does, every bracket's pretty bad. But we'll post this on our website. We'll post it on somewhere so you can see it in case you were listening to everything and you don't remember who our Final Four were in the championship. Final Four was Duke, Texas Tech, Virginia, Kentucky, Duke, Virginia, with Duke at the end.
All right. Let's move into some questions. So we had a question from Twitter from FX Hoops. If you had to choose one option for Saturday, Gafford and Romeo both play or neither play. That's not a really viable question anymore because Gafford's not even playing anyways, and I don't think Romeo's playing either. So sorry, FX or for FXF Hoops.
Do we know that for sure if Romeo's 100% out or?
We don't know if he's 100% out, but I know Gafford's 100% out.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, yeah, but yeah, okay. So for Romeo, so I mean, if that were the scenario, I'd probably like to see both of them in there, just because it's both two really good players that are potentially probably going to go into the NBA next year and get a pretty high pick. So it'd be good, even though they're not the same position, they wouldn't necessarily be going up against each other. It's still always good to see the best teams on the court, both sides, even if it's your opponent. So I'd rather see both of them in there.
Yeah, that's true. The only thing I'll say about that is we're all expecting Romeo to go to the NBA next year. For IU fans, much like we saw back on Tuesday against St. Francis, PA, we're getting kind of a sense of what IU will look like next year. Obviously, we're going to add a couple freshmen in Armand Franklin and Trace Jackson Davis, but you see this team now with Finney and Green and Durham and Duran Davis and so on. So, I'm looking forward to that. Look, if Gafford can't go, I mean, why not?
I mean, I'll segue into this next question we got from Dakota. He asked, Greg Doyle of Indy Star wrote an article earlier, I think yesterday or this morning, about that Romeo should consider staying at IU. So would it be bad for IU would it be a bad look for IU if Romeo stays? Obviously it would look like we ruined a lottery pick, or would it be good for IU if he stays because we get another year of Romeo? I'm interested to hear your thoughts on that, guys.
I'll take this first. I don't necessarily first the notion that a 5-star player that stays for multiple years and that you basically ruin them, I don't necessarily like that notion. I think we've seen that a few times recently, but it doesn't necessarily mean that if they stay for a second year, that doesn't mean that they're going to slide down and they're going to get worse on the draft board. Like I've said, we've seen that a lot recently, so people will jump to that conclusion pretty quickly. But if Romeo were to potentially stay next year, and of course when the offseason stuff comes around and before we hear his answer and everything, there's going to be all the speculation, even if the likely story that he's going to go. If he were to stay, I think he could still be able to get his draft stock up. He's not your typical college basketball player. He's going to keep getting better. I think he's going to, if he's not in the lottery projected to be in the lottery this year, and he stays to get into the lottery next year, first of all, next year is not going to have the powerhouse top of the NBA picks that this year is. We've seen just Zion and RJ Barrett and all of those guys at the top. Those are a once in a generation potential kind of players. So that kind of moves everyone else down potentially. So for your average year, Romeo comes next year. He's gotten pretty fluent with the team. He's starting to know his role. He's starting to shoot the three a little better. His free throws were getting so much better. He's getting more confidence and stuff. I don't necessarily think that's a bad thing. So that was a long answer, but I don't think you can say no or hate Romeo coming back for a second year. And I don't think that would be bad on anyone's part. I don't think that'd be bad for him. He's also the kind of guy that if he wants to start something, he wants to leave a legacy. That's what he does. Unless we win the NIT, there's not going to be any specific thing stamped to Romeo's name for his Indiana legacy.
Yeah. How about you, Nathan? Anything to add?
Yeah, no, that's fair. And I liked Dakota's question because, I don't mind a writer putting together an opinion that Romeo Langford should maybe think about coming back. It's a fair editorial to write, but it was very odd that Greg Doyle, who wrote for the Indy Star, kind of made it seem like he walked up to Romeo Langford's family and just kind of told him, hey, you should listen to me. This is what you should do. The bottom line is Romeo Langford should do what he feels like doing. And I don't know what that is. Maybe it's he wants to continue college life. I know that's something Cody Zeller chose. He just wanted to be in college. That's not the end of the world. And you only get that chance once in your lifetime to go through that experience with people your age. So maybe that's what Romeo wants to do. Maybe Romeo has wanted to be in the NBA since he was 5 years old. And after IU loses in the NIT or wins the whole thing, that'll be his last game with the Hoosiers and he'll move on. It's up to him. And Noah, to your point about, second-year guys in the NBA draft sort of paying off, how about Ja Morant? This is a guy that everyone's dictating is the number 1 point guard in the draft. He's a sophomore. There are a couple other guys like Jarrett Culver and DeAndre Hunter who are going to have played 2 years in college, and they're probably going to go in the top 5, maybe, in the top 10, maybe the top 5. So again, it's Romeo's choice, and there are probably different factors involved, and I think we're all just tuning in to see what that decision will be.
I will add for Dakota, he literally put in parentheses for this, I personally think the kid should do what he wants to do, just to echo Nathan.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Absolutely. I kind of side more towards go get your money, as much as I would love to see him a second year. Just because, like, how do you not let somebody go and make millions of dollars for doing something they love? So if he can be in the lottery, I say go do that. If he's not in the lottery, I do think the Ja Morant model is more viable.
We can also dig into this a lot deeper after the season's over. If he hasn't made an immediate decision, we can take that time that we got to wait till the next basketball season to talk about everything, even if there's one answer that we all think is going to happen.
Correct. So I'm gonna Dakota had a second question, was who should be IU's focus for recruiting. I'm gonna go with Harold Beverly. Of course, he's the guard from Montverde Academy in Florida. I think I like his game a lot. I think we're going to need more depth at the guard position, especially since I think we're losing Romeo. So adding another guard, boosting us up to 5 guards on the roster, I think that's a much better rotation of guards than having what we had this year with only 4. So have more guards, the better. So I do think Harold Beverly or one of those grad transfer wings, one of those 3-point shooting wings, somebody that can come in and give us 10 points a night, and hit 2 or 3 3-pointers a night would be interesting as well. Of course, the transfer market is ever evolving because some people are getting news about the coach getting fired, so they're going to transfer, or they're sitting down with the family and talking about it, what would be best for them. So just keep an eye out. I know there's a transfer from, is it Arkansas A&M or Arkansas Little Rock, and he averages 20 points per game, is 40% 3-point shooter, is heard from every school in Division I, who transferred. So people like that, look for IU to maybe look at as well. Any other thoughts, guys?
I could add, just for a generic thing, not necessarily a specific person, maybe your big man that can shoot a 3. So what Evan Fitzner's job was supposed to be coming in here, a big guy that might be able to bang down low a little bit, but can step out and take a 3. I could see IU looking that direction as well. But I'd go with you a little more, Matt. If we had one spot, replace the position. I'm not saying replace Romeo, specifically just replace the position, add another guard for taking the guard away.
Yeah, get somebody that can be productive in Romeo's position, but not be Romeo. We're going to need other players to step up and kind of help fill the role that Romeo had in the offense. But, somebody that could, literally be a body in a spot. Nathan, you got anything to add for that?
The only sort of other aspect of this is kind of the middle ground, right? Instead of recruiting a high schooler or a grad transfer, there might be a 2 or 3 year transfer available at the end of the season. That's the kind of route that Nick Zeisloff took a few years ago. After a couple years at Illinois State, he transferred, had to sit out a year, and then played 2 for IU. And he was a really important cog in that team that won the Big Ten title back in 2015. So, maybe that's the route IU goes. But, definitely a lot of options out there.
All right, let's do this quickly. What do you see as the philosophy of the NIT for Indiana? This is from Blake. Win the thing or try to get more guys more experience? I'll go quickly. I'm just say to win the damn thing, just because not only is it a good PR boost if we win it, but it's also good experience for the guys and more games for people to improve their draft stock, like Juwan and Romeo.
Yeah, this is a pretty in-depth question that you could potentially have a lot to say about it, because there's definitely some differing opinions on this. But in terms of what Blake specifically said, win the thing or try and get guys more experience, why not both? Why can't they do both necessarily? And really, the only guy, I mean, Romeo too, but really you only got Juwan and Romeo who are getting significant playing time that are leaving. Zach's been able to get back on the court, but you only got two guys that aren't going to be on the team next year. Go win the thing.
Yep.
Yeah, and I'm paraphrasing just a little bit, but Archie Miller did say something like he won't let sort of the class of the player, the year he's in, determine how much he plays in the NIT. Archie is kind of saying it explicitly right there. And I'll tell you one thing, guys, even if Indiana wants to win, as the question said, the whole damn thing, it's not going to be easy. There are a lot of really good teams, the NIT, that missed out on the NCAA tournament. I just saw that Alabama was one of them, and they just lost in the first round.
Yeah.
So look, it's not going to be easy. And look, the carrot dangling out in front of you at the end of the stick is Madison Square Garden in New York City, and a chance to hoist a trophy on ESPN. So look, go out there and get it.
Texas almost lost last night to South Dakota State. So
yeah, I mean, every team struggles in the first round because one team is like their Super Bowl and the other team it's like their worst nightmare. Anyways, moving on. We got a question from Dustin. Was Archie's technical foul the spark for IU beating St. Francis? Has this further cemented him into the role? Anybody want to take this?
I don't think there was. I don't know about that last part, like cementing. I don't think Archie needs to worry about that sort of thing. As far as actually sort of sparking the team, it could have. I mean, who knows? I think Juwan Morgan said after the game yesterday, we were kind of looking for that all year. So, look, when the senior says that, obviously the team does ride the wave a little bit. But look, Ed Schilling, an assistant coach for IU, gained some attention yesterday. Apparently, he was the guy who gave the rousing halftime pep talk. So, look, it's good to see the coaches very much engaged, and I hope the players follow that lead too. They did in the second half on Tuesday, and I hope they keep that going.
Yeah, I completely agree with you on that one. Any last thoughts, Noah?
Nope. Just keep watching the games. Go to the games if you can. If you're in the area, they're still playing in the NIT. The notion also of carrying your momentum from this year to next year. A lot of people say, Penn State didn't carry their momentum. They lost players. Yada yada yada. Look at the IU women's basketball team. Last year they won the NIT. This year they're playing better than they usually do, and they lost two of the best players in IU women's basketball history. Yet they made the tournament this year. So I definitely think including that. Plus, remember, the women's team went on a, what was it, like a 10, 11, 12 game undefeated streak at the beginning of the year. They started out the season real hot, something like that, whatever it was. Go win the thing. Yep. Support your Hoosiers, etc.
Yep. So that about wraps it up for our 80th show of the Hoosier Sound. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate your support. Noah will be back this Friday for another edition of the Hoosier Sound Off with updates on how everything is going through Thursday. Thank you to our live audience for coming out and participating in the chat. Make sure to stay tuned through updates on Twitter at the Hoosier Sound. Subscribe to us on YouTube or however you listen to podcasts, and visit our website at indianahq.com to find information in one place. As always, send us your questions as the audience. Be sure to comment, chat, or send us a message at admin@theindianahq.com on what questions you have, and we'll have them on our next episode. Lastly, if you enjoy the show, leave us a review, tell a friend, share our links. Your support really helps us grow this podcast and reach more passionate IU fans such as yourself. But as always, Thank you for listening, Hoosier Nation, and we'll see you next time.